What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to find the surface area of right cones. All right, so we're going to go over a few examples, and the last one that I'm going to do, we're going to actually have to use a little bit of trig to find the height of the cone, all right? So in order to find the surface area of a cone that has a right angle in it, the formula is the surface area is equal to pi r squared plus pi rl, where r just stands for the radius of the cone and L is this slanted height. Or if you look at this triangle right here, it's basically the hypotenuse of this triangle. Okay, so if we wanted to find the surface area of this first problem, which we do, no duh, this is going to be equal to pi times the radius squared. The radius here you can see is 8 inches, so we'll say 8 squared plus pi times the radius, which again is 8, times L, which again is this slanted height, right? It's not the vertical height, just a slanted height, the hypotenuse, which here is 16. All right, so here this is going to be equal to pi times 8 squared, which is 64, plus here we have pi times 8 times 16, that's equal to 128. So here this is equal to 64 times pi, we could just write that as 64 pi, and then we could write 128 times pi is 128 pi, and if you add these together, you get 192 pi, and if you plug that into your calculator, you'll get that this is equal to approximately 603.2, and our units are in inches, and this is an area, right? So we're gonna get inches squared. Boom, all right, not too bad. Let's try another one here. So again, we're going to use the exact same formula. So the surface area of a right cone is equal to pi r squared plus pi rl. So here the surface area is going to be equal to pi times the radius in this case. Well, here, this dimension it gives us is the diameter. So we just have to take half of this. So half of 11 is 5.5, right? So for the radius, we're going to plug in the 5.5, and again, that's squared. And then we're going to say plus pi rl, and again, the radius is 5.5. And then L is the slanted height right here, which is 7.2. Okay, now here, 5.5 squared, that's equal to 30.25. So here, this is going to be equal to 30.25 times pi. And then we're going to add that to this one over here. 5.5 times 7.2 is equal to 39.6. And again, we're multiplying that by pi. So then here, if we add 30.25 and 39.6, this is going to be equal to 69.85. And we have our pi's attached, right? So make sure you keep the pi right there. Now, if you multiply this out, you'll get that this is equal to approximately 219.4, and our units are centimeters squared. Boom. All right, let's do one more here. So this time we have, again, our right cone. Here it's telling us that the diameter is 14 yards, and it's saying that this angle up here is 32 degrees, okay? So again, we can use the same formula. So the surface area of a right cone is equal to pi r squared plus pi rl. All right, so here the surface area is going to be equal to pi times the radius squared. Here the radius, well, again, it gives us the diameter, which is 14, so the radius must be 7. All right, so we're going to have 7 squared here plus pi times rl. Again, r is 7, and then L is what we have to figure out here. So remember, L is the slanted height of the cone, okay? So if we want to find L, it would be this distance right here, okay? So as you can see, it's the hypotenuse, right, of this right triangle. Now, in order to figure out what that length is, we're going to have to use a little bit of trig. So let's fill in one last thing that we know here. So again, we know the full diameter is 14 yards. So again, we know that the radius, or in other words, this side right here of the triangle is 7 yards, okay? So we're given this angle up here, 32 degrees. We know this length over here, which is 7. So in order to figure out what this length is of the hypotenuse, let's first label our sides as the opposite side, the adjacent side, and the hypotenuse, all right? So obviously this one in blue is the hypotenuse, so we'll just label that as the hypotenuse right now. Now in relation to this angle that we're given, this 32 degrees, you can see the opposite side would be opening that way, right? So this little red side right here is the opposite side, right? In relation to this 32 degrees. So where this 7 is, again, is the opposite side. All right, so then by process of elimination, that means this last side down here must be the adjacent side. Okay, now we need to figure out what trig function we want to use, sine, cosine, or tangent. And in order to do that, you can write out the little acronym SOHCAHTOA. So this acronym right here just tells us we want to use sine when we're going to use the opposite and the hypotenuse side. We want to use cosine if we're going to use the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. And we want to use tangent if we're going to use the opposite side and the adjacent side. So here, we're looking for the hypotenuse, right? So we obviously want to find this h. And we know this opposite side over here, right? It's given as 7. So in this case, we want to use the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So here, we would want to use sine. So here, we're going to say sine of the angle that we're given, that we're working with, which is 32 degrees, if I can say it. So the sine of 32 degrees is going to be equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So the opposite side is 7, and the hypotenuse is unknown. It's hiding from us, sneaky little fellow. So in order to solve for h, the first thing we want to do is move it to the numerator. So the first thing we can do here is multiply both sides by h. So times h. Over here, they kill each other, bang, bang. And we're left with 7 on this side. And that's equal to h times the sine of 32. Okay, so now to solve for h, we can get rid of this sine of 32 by dividing by the sine of 32 on both sides. On this side, boom, boom, they kill each other, murder-suicide, and then we're left with just h. So we get that h is equal to 7 divided by the sine of 32, which is equal to approximately 13.21. All right, so this is the length of this hypotenuse. And remember, the length of this hypotenuse is L in our formula, right? So that's what we're going to plug in for L. So we're going to plug in 13.21 right there. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit more. Now this is all going to be equal to, let's see, 7 squared, that's equal to 49. So here we're going to have 49 pi, and then we're going to add that to this guy over here. 13.21 times 7, that's equal to 92.47 approximately times pi. And then if you add the two numbers up, we're going to get that this is equal to approximately 141.47 pi. Okay, now if you multiply this out, you'll get that this is equal to approximately 444.43. And our units are in yards, right? So we're going to get yards square right there. So if you found the video helpful, make sure to leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below.